but that's exactly how it goes.
So, I mean,
if you're watching the television yourself, you can see them with notes right in front of them.
And that is not, let me reiterate what you said before. This is not us hating on those people, because I promise you, if Shannon Sharp decided to cover the New Orleans Saints, he'd do a better job than any of us bloggers, because he knows the game and played the game. He has the ability, he just doesn't have the time. And that's all we're saying is don't discredit some people and don't focus on these talking heads as much, because they simply don't have the time to do what other people are doing. You know, Shannon Sharp, you know, Bucky Brooks, Ed Warner, those guys are NFL-level guys, whether it becomes, we're talking scouting department or players, so they know the game of football. They can tell you what everything is. They just simply don't have the time to break down what each team is doing.
Not at all. And I think the example that you gave just now, using Von Bell being that spot, was an absolutely perfect illustration of what the guys who are giving the information don't tell you. So I just think, you know, sometimes you guys, you know, who are out there and you're listening, consider the source and understand exactly what we're trying to get off right now, which is it's not bashing them per se. It's an idea of just trying to let you guys know that understand they don't watch the games the way you watch the game.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a reason why, you know, they speak in the way in which the way they do. They don't know your team. That's it.
Yeah. Well, let's say we've got about half an hour left, and we've talked about just about everything except one thing in depth, and that is how we're going to beat Carolina after the bye week. We've mentioned the fact that, and I think it should be noted that ESPN reported today that they are unsure if Cam Newton's even going to play this Monday night against Tampa because, as you said, this is most likely his second concussion in a month's time. But that could also spill over into the New Orleans game. And what do you think is going to be key for us to not just beat the Panthers, but to build not – what I'm trying to say is not just beat the Panthers, but beat them in a way that's actually convincing instead of miracles happening like in San Diego?
I think the first thing that we have to, I guess, know is the health of Cam Newton, because it all starts and stops with him. But assuming even he does play, considering that, you know, maybe the 2-week stretch will be just enough time for him to, you know, kind of clear his mind, get ready, you know, because, I mean, for all those that don't know, when you get a concussion, there's a lot of things that take place. It's not just a matter of, you know, the fact that your brain just shook. It's the idea that you become sensitive to things that you wouldn't even believe. Sound, light, you know, certain other things that take place, you know, certain things that you may want to do. Your equilibrium is just not there for you to do. So, you know, I mean, it's something as simple as just walking to the mailbox. Maybe, you know, he may have dizzy spells because of this, because he hasn't really regained his balance yet. But if Cam Newton does play, the first thing we have to do is shut down the run. That's who Carolina is. They're a ground and pound type of team. Yes, they have these 6'4", 6'5" receivers, and it's fun to have those type of guys. But everything Carolina does is set up off the run. You have to stop Jonathan Stewart or Fozzie Whitaker or whoever may be in the game and stop Cam Newton as being a runner himself, which I think that the fact that he does have, now I'm going to keep calling it, 2 concussions in the first 4 weeks of the season, I definitely believe that will slow Cam down from running. It won't stop him, but it will definitely slow him down, which could help the Saints. Because if he gets one more, that could be very dangerous. We're not talking about 3 concussions in the first half of the season. I also believe that the Saints are going to have to do a good job of containment. Mm-hmm. You don't want Cam getting to the outside and letting those receivers get beat down the field, because I don't see Ken Crowley being able to, you know, contest a jump ball with the 6'5" Kelvin Benjamin.
Yeah.
And most importantly for the Saints, help your defense. You understand that even though if you're getting a guy like Sheldon Rankins or even Delvin Breaux, because I've seen videos posted of Delvin Breaux running right now, even if you get those guys back and they're healthy, help your defense. Run the ball more. Control the clock. Make sure you get 7 on the board instead of 3. Because that's going to put Carolina behind the 8 ball, and Carolina's not the type of team that's going to be able to come back from a 10, 14-point deficit. They're not built that way. So help your defense. Get an early lead. Make your possessions count. Don't turn the ball over, because Carolina doesn't have the DBs to intercept Drew Brees unless he throws it right to him.
Yeah.
But they do have the linebackers that can create pressure. How do you stop those linebackers from pinning their ears back and coming and get you? Run the ball. Give them something to think about. Make them read and react. And if the Saints can do those things, barring it's a healthy Cam Newton, if it's an unhealthy Cam and he's not playing, all bets are off. But
I would.
Go get
much as I don't really like Cam Newton, I would much rather face Derek Anderson any day of the week, because I realize that Cam Newton is a good football player, regardless of what I might think of him in terms of who he is personality-wise. So, yeah, please give me Derek Anderson any day of the week there. But if there's any game that Mark Ingram should get 100 yards rushing or shine, it should be this game here against this, what really should be called a depleted Carolina defense. I mean, he got 100 yards when Carolina's defense was in their prime, let alone now where they have gaping holes in that team. Because it's not just the fact that Josh Norman is no longer there. The whole secondary has changed. The defensive line has changed. I mean, and people can say things about, Greg Hardy, and he was basically their version of Junior Gillette when it came to disruptions and everything. But look at all their starters that they have on defense right now. Besides their linebacking core, which is still one of the strongest in the NFL, who do they really have on defense? They've got Coney Ealy starting on defensive end, who has not lived up to his high draft potential, in my opinion. I mean, you study the NFC South, so you might have a different opinion. But for a second-round pick, I expect more than 4 sacks a year. That's basically what he's getting. Right now, he has no sacks this year.
Agreed.
I mean, they've got, what was it? Kenyon Coleman is a strong safety. They've got Kurt Coleman. I said Kenyon. No-name people at cornerback, really. Their linebackers are really all they have left, and then Johnson at defensive end and Starlo Tulehi in the middle. But they're really sitting right now on half of their defensive line is either underperforming or below average. And their secondary went from being one of the best in the NFL to barely average. I mean, they got 5th-round picks starting at cornerback. I mean, the yardage they're giving up is so much higher. I think they've only got, 1 interception this year, maybe 2 interceptions. I mean, they're really struggling as a team defensively. Now, they're still better than the New Orleans Saints defensively. I mean, I'm not going to say they're garbage, but we're talking about this was arguably the best defense in the NFL to being middle of the pack, like 15th, 16th ranked, might end the year being in the 20s with the way they played against Atlanta. So, I mean, a lot of potential for the Saints offense to have its way specifically in the run game.
Exactly. And another point to be made with this is that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Thomas Davis injured his hamstring in the game. Now, I know that there were reports saying that he was just fine and stuff like that, but I'm sorry. You tweak your hamstring in the game and you have a game coming up this Monday night, it's not a guarantee it's going to fully heal, and it's always possible that even if he's able to play on it, that he could possibly re-aggravate the injury and miss the Saints game. And that's the Carolina Panthers can't afford to lose a talent like Thomas Davis. He's one of the leaders of that defense, and as you said, pretty much all the Carolina Panthers have is a very good linebacking group with Luke Kuechly, who just may be the best linebacker in football. But you can't afford to lose Thomas Davis, who's the heart and soul of that defense as well. So you can't continue to lose guys and think you're just going to plug people in. I know Carolina had some secondary issues as well as far as the safeties, and they're trying to swap guys out and still trying to figure out the right combination to go with that. That's not what you want. And Tampa, for all their hang-ups, it's still a division game, and Tampa's going to fight with Carolina. So it's going to be a physical game.
Mm-hmm.
You got 2 division games. Well, this will be your 3rd division game in a row for the Carolina Panthers. At some point, it's going to catch up with you.
Yeah.
So you got blown out by Atlanta pretty much. You're going to scrap with Tampa, and then you have to come to New Orleans and play the Saints.
On a short week.
As well as the Saints being off of a bye. I think with Sean Payton having that bye week, that's going to be a big difference because now you have 2 weeks of film on Carolina playing Division 4 to see what they're able to do. And if Derek Anderson has to play, you also get a chance to kind of view the film on him and see what he's doing at this point. That's 2 weeks of film, game film on him as well. That bodes well for the Saints right now. We'll see what happens as the game gets closer. We have a bye week this week. Saints can get healthy. And Carolina can also lose additional guys by them not being, by them having to play the next 2 weeks. we're going to see what happens.
Well, I think you mentioned a good point with Thomas Davis being injured, because Thomas Davis is 33 years old. I mean, and for a linebacker in today's NFL, that's pretty old. Now, he is, I mean, this guy, if they have a Hall of Fame level linebacker in the past couple decades, it's Thomas Davis. He's been solid. He's probably going to end up with over 900 tackles after this year, assuming he can be semi-healthy. And if he plays another year, we're talking about an over 1,000 tackle guy, which in today's NFL, where people just don't last, that's huge numbers. Keep in mind, guys like Jonathan Vilma, we all love Jonathan Vilma. Jonathan Vilma didn't touch that many tackles. I actually have to pull up what he had, but 1,000 tackles is just an exorbitant amount, and I'm pulling up his numbers right now. Where are tackles? Oh, you give me TDs and interceptions. Yeah. So for his career, 612 total tackles. And we know Jonathan Vilma was a great player for New Orleans, especially the Super Bowl year. So Thomas Davis is definitely a key cog. Luke Kuechly, as you said, if that guy can stay healthy, play 16 games a year, he's probably the best linebacker in the NFL for years into the future. He is today's version of the San Francisco linebacking group that was just so dominant, only 5-6 years ago, and now most of them have either retired or moved on. So if he plays, that is a big difference maker. And if he sits and Cam sits, it's really hard to imagine the Saints losing that Carolina game.
Here's a very interesting thing that I think should be talked about when it comes to the Saints versus Carolina. And it's the idea that, well, first and foremost, last year when Luke Kuechly suffered his concussion, he sat out about 3 weeks. The Carolina Panthers sat him out for about 3 weeks until after their bye week.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, the Saints versus Carolina Panthers are going to take place in the very next week. Carolina has a bye week. It would not shock me if Carolina decides to sit Cam Newton out until after their bye week, because you do have 2 divisional games, and yes, they're important, but would you rather not have him for those 2 games and not rather have him for the rest of the year if he suffers another concussion? And I think that could play a huge factor in it. I mean, Derek Anderson for them is more than a capable backup, but if you lose Cam Newton, your season is pretty much done. There's a reason why Derek Anderson is your backup. Cam Newton was the MVP last year. If there's anything that Carolina's going to want to do, it's going to be to protect him. And you don't want him going up against an angry Tampa defense. And Tampa's defense had like 8. I mean, they got like 8 sacks in the game that they just played. Even though and over the course of the first couple of games anyway. I mean, Tampa's defense can get after the quarterback. They may not be any good, but they can get after the quarterback. You don't want that defense coming after you. Of course, Jerry McCoy, I believe, is injured again. But you still got Noah Spence and those guys that are going to be coming after the quarterback. That could spell trouble for Cam Newton if he's back there. I don't know if Carolina's going to want to risk it. Maybe you sit him out until after the bye week, and then you bring him back, as well as the doctors still have to clear Cam Newton to even play.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be clear for this game Monday night.
Also put it this way, because if you're a Carolina fan or a player or coach, and don't take offense to this, Saints, but are you really scared of playing the New Orleans Saints or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now? Probably not. Answer for me, if I was on their side, I wouldn't be scared. If there were going to be 2 games where I tried to rest my Pro Bowl level, some people's opinion, MVP level quarterback, those are the 2 games I would rest, especially going into a bye, and then come out strong in the second half of the season. So they might look at it, like you're saying, in terms of we can win more later if we sacrifice a win or maybe 2 wins this go around. But I also got to say this. Cam Newton has got to agree to do that, because Cam, say what you will about him, the guy loves the game of football and wants to play. I mean, that's why he is so uppity and in your face during games, because he is passionate about football. Now, we might not agree on that passion, but I will give him credit for loving the game of football. So it's also, will he allow himself to be pulled out of those games? Or if he gets approved, is he going to say, no, doctor said I'm good to go, I'm going whether it's good or not?
So why do they put seatbelts in cars, Rev?
Well, to keep you from killing yourself.
Exactly. Sometimes you got to. Sometimes it's a law for your seatbelts to be buckled, because sometimes the government has to save people from their own stupidity. In this case, the coaches are going to have to save Cam Newton from his own stupidity. Yes, you're a warrior. Yes, you want to play football. But this is your brain we're talking about.